This week we've brought a group of elders from all over the state, even from Ceduna, from Adelaide, Raucan, Point Pearce, all over the place, and a bunch of youth that really disengaged and disadvantaged youth that are, a lot of them don't even know who their families are, let alone their culture.
We've got a group of young people that we've brought down from Ceduna that come to the youth hub that we know quite well, and we brought a group of ladies down, elder ladies from Ceduna, and we've joined in, been invited to take part on this camp through the Age Rights Advocacy Service, the Elders and Youth Camp at Cooley Park.
The kids also have a lot of information about the organisations that are involved, and so they will have an idea of what work is done to prevent elder abuse in their communities.
Getting out of the city back to nature, I love it out here, and learning how to make clapping sticks and boomerangs with Uncle Trevor there, that was good. I love that stuff.
The idea of this week was to bring these groups together for a bit of mentoring so that the elders can actually sit down and engage with the youth, and the youth can learn a bit more about their identity and their culture.
Traditionally, Aboriginal communities pay a lot of respect to elders, but somewhere along the line, sometimes that breaks down and elders get abused. So we want to empower people to actually take that message, to work with their communities, to actually say elder abuse is not okay. And us young people are going to make it right for elders as they get older.
I know it's hard trying to hold back that tide when you feel it washing over you.
Really makes us proud to be able to come somewhere and to be given a welcome and talk about your country as it relates to our own places where we come from.
The lack of role modelling and the lack of construct in a household and stuff like that, the typical model of a mum and dad and a couple of siblings and a cat and a dog, that's not existent for these people. They're already in the realms of dealing with issues around alcohol, tobacco and other drugs and stuff like that.
If we don't talk about it, and if we don't do it right, we're going to have the situation what we had before when welfare took all the kids away.
What little love that they get is in a false setting. There's no true depth of looking after and encouraging these young people to have a vision about what's going on next year or the year after.
So this is our crew of young people, and then still up the back there.
It's a very complex issue when we're talking about elder abuse. And there are financial abuse, physical, social, emotional, psychological.
Hopefully they take that message and they become ambassadors in their own communities against elder abuse.
What these groups and these meetings that we're having mean to do is to educate people, young people, about what it is that you need to know for a healthy life.
Some people might be doing things and they might not even realise that what they're doing is elder abuse. And by sitting down with the elders, talking to the young fellas about what elder abuse is and how to combat it.
First I was going to come because I didn't know what I was to expect. Just to come out here and seeing, it's like...
Desert?
Yeah, not used to this, yeah, compared to the city lights in Adelaide. When you come out here, it's like, get to know the elders and, get them to teach you a few stuff. Yeah, it's really good.
Deep inside of you, let it shine. Yeah, I'm talking to you, let it shine.
But many years ago, as a young guy that first went to Coniba, I never had much to do with old people in those. But I met an old man sitting he was blind and he was in a shed. And old Auntie Ruby Cox said to me, go in there and talk to that old fellow, he'll tell you a startling story.
You're supposed to know where you come from, you're supposed to know your background, your history, all that. And I literally don't know anything.
Just by the turn of the century, a whole group of Aboriginal tribe was wiped out. They were pushed off the cliff at Elliston, and they all died in the sea there. And I thought this is an old man rambling on this. I said, all right, okay, I'll listen to this. And he told me his name was David, and his father was Wombody.
It can teach you a lot, you know, just being around the elders, you know, like picking up the language, like sitting down with them and yarning with them, you know, like we're going to yarn with like Auntie Diane that later on, you know, and then one of the other elders are going to help him with like bush medicine and that, you know, like all this stuff, you know, that we can't do in the city.
What happened was when the people were all pushed off the cliff and they perished, this couple were coming back in a horse and cart and they heard babies crying in the salt bush. They went and had a look there and there was a half-caste baby and a full-blood baby in the salt bush. That half-caste baby was the old David and the full-blood baby was Wombat.
That's the thing as well, you know, like Maryland and that, you know, because like they actually, you know, go down like where they come from. They go there regularly and they go see their family down there, you know. I don't know anyone that lives in Rackham, you know. All
I want to say is now that I appreciate very much being with all the young people. I'm the oldest guy around, I know that. I always felt a softness for young people because we grew up in the era when it was a lot different to what it is today.
And that rocky road to freedom find you on that slippery slide, and you're looking for the shoulder, you got mine. Anytime.
Well, see, I was lucky because my grandmother was my mentor and my grandfather, and we were shown part of a Jugabar. Well, I know the full story of the Jugabar of the Seven Sisters.
This particular camp was planned by the three ladies from Kupapiti, and they saw it as a way of bringing troubled youth that are disengaged into their culture and teaching them about respect for elders and respect for their culture.
The land tells you the story, and I knew the story in my head, even though I hadn't been out on the land for many years. So it all came back. And I think it's important that the young ones learn that, because it's really important for them to continue it on.
My mum and my dad split up when I was little, and I just grew up with my mum, so don't know much about it. Yeah.
A couple of youth from Ceduna area have had a bit of a different upbringing than the lads we've brought over from Adelaide, who are all disengaged, and some of them have, you know, had some pretty traumatic pasts.
Yeah, it's just me really. I'm the only Aboriginal in my family, like besides my dad, yeah, but he lives up in Darwin.
Hopefully they've learnt from some of the youth that have been brought up by their families here and have had that contact with their culture and with their elders all their lives.
Because I grew up with white people, I didn't really feel like Aboriginal for most of my life, but then once I started going on White Line, hanging out with like black fellas, just made me feel more Aboriginal, you know, because I'm starting to learn lingo and stuff like that. So it's good.
Gets a little hard to find. Let me be your peace of mind. There's one thing I know.
This is the third camp that ACH has been involved with, and we support the elders to come on the camp so that they can, you know, interact with the youth.
The young fellas, like I said, give them a bit of room. They will bump, they will clash, but you know, one day you'll remember and look back and say, oh, I can remember that you as a little boy, and then you see how big and strong they'll grow.
The boys went out last night and they got themselves a southern grey kangaroo in English, and in our language, in this country, we call this a kolbeda.
We've also got to encourage elders to know that their life experiences, you know, will add value to any young person's life. It's about the sharing of that information, you know, and talking about experiences that they've been through.
The Adelaide kids were saying, oh, I don't eat kangaroo, I don't eat. So we changed the format and made some rissoles and that sort of stuff. And now all those kids are eating this sort of stuff, you know. I mean, this is part of their history, part of their culture, part of their growing up, you know. Their parents would have eaten this sort of stuff, you know, back in the day when it was really hard days.
Because without those discussions, young people have an opinion that the older generations haven't had any issues to deal with in their lives.
Because there's one thing I know, and it's true. There's a light that's shining deep inside of you.
It seems like there's a bit of a fracturing around, you know, letting go some of the old culture and trading that in for mainstream Australian sort of way of living, you know. So, and that's a battle for each and every individual young person as well, you know, like they need to figure out how much of their culture they want to hold on to or relinquish, as opposed to how much of mainstream sort of setting they want to live in.
They'll have a lot more respect for more people around them, because back in the city, it's just that they fend for themselves. So there's nothing out there too much for them. They're not learning from anybody back in the city, except for mentors and case managers and the people that work with their families, like what Lion does.
During the camp, it's great. They get that bonding going, and they learn respect and tradition. But it's the things that happen after the camp, the stories that we hear after of kids that have gone on to do better things.
It's just really good to see the Adelaide kids get out of Adelaide and have a look at a different lifestyle that's out there, instead of just that, go home, catch a bus up to this Hiney Street on a Friday, Saturday, night. They're looking at another world now, they're in another world out here.
Let it shine. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Let it shine.